Hey folks, Plain Jane here, and I want to talk a little bit about one of the secrets of my success. And again, this is like one of those contrarian things that I've come up with. When I was in high school, I had a calculus teacher who had a big sign up at the front of the room which said, "Nobody plans to fail, but some fail to plan." And basically he was saying, please don't come crying to me if you haven't done any of your calculus homework all year. But it was one of those things that kind of like stuck with me, like those little aphorisms that are always helpful for me as I'm trying to move through life. But as I went through my working life and my rest of the life, I realized that in fact, I'm planning to fail all the time. And because of that, my plans become much more resilient, much more well thought through, and I am better able to cope with the fact that I can't control everything in the world. I actually was most successful when I was planning to fail. Instead of looking at a project after it's not gone well to find out what happened, it's going in and before the project even starts, having a discussion, having a framework to look through. If this project were to fail, what are the ways that it would have failed? And then once you've figured out these are the main things that probably are going to cause this project to fail, putting in some risk mitigating strategies to address those particular problems. I don't know if you've ever been in a working environment in which you're not allowed to talk about how things might fail because that's negativity. And, it's almost like people think that it will create this self-fulfilling prophecy that because you identified a risk, that means that that risk is more likely to come to pass. But in fact, when somebody brings to you a risk at work, that means that they want you to succeed and they're just trying to figure out how you're going to solve for it. There are places that really require almost like a high activation energy. And as soon as you talk about like what might be going wrong, then the company has this like habit of like not doing the thing because something could go wrong and only things that are 100% likely are going to get a green light. This is a case of know your organization and be in the right place at the right time. If an idea is too far baked, if they're doing the big presentation, then they're not going to be able to listen to you saying this thing might fail. Hopefully, if you talk to them early enough in the process and you have some credibility, then they'll listen to you. But yeah, again, like that activation energy that an organization has in order to get something done, sometimes it just doesn't let people do things unless they're 100% confident and they pretend that they're 100% confident. And that actually leads to the organization being less successful because they aren't addressing potential risks, but it makes them feel better in the short term. Running through the simulations of what if there is a negative outcome can be really helpful because it helps build up resilience. If this thing happens, how am I going to respond? And you can start to practice the positive responses that you could have. When you're less stressed about it, you've got a chance to fix it and reflect and like run it again. If you're in the moment and you've never considered that potential eventuality, you're kind of stuck with whatever your default reaction is, which is often not a great one. One of the downsides about planning for failure is that you become less efficient. And that's because you're starting to build in redundancy. You start to build in some margin for error. Sometimes we hear stories of companies or people that succeeded despite not having a backup plan, despite never considering how they might have failed. And the thing here is that there's a huge amount of survival bias. You don't hear about the people who didn't succeed because they didn't think things through. You don't think about the organizations that didn't have a plan for what if other things happen. They didn't make it through, so you don't hear their stories. So don't think, oh, that would be great if I bet everything on that particular run of the roulette table. Wouldn't you prefer to have a higher likelihood of success than if you had this success that it was completely outsized? Anyways, I always prefer to go for higher odds rather than huge payout. Planning for failure is not just important because there are outside things out of your control that are just going to happen. You can't know everything, but also you yourself are not always your best self. And so, what are the things that you can put in place, either systems or affordances or just some buffer to help you in those times when you don't help your future self as much as you'd like to? So, that could be procrastination or falling off of whatever particular goal you're trying to set. There are lots of strategies for getting things done that take into account the fact that we aren't always our best selves. So that could be breaking things up into really small pieces. This could be having an accountability partner. There are all sorts of approaches, but if we pretend that we're always our best self, then we don't take them into account and we don't bring them in when we could use them. And that's like one of those places where, like, plan for failure, plan for the times that you're not going to be great. The thing is, I'm constantly planning for failure. I'm making dinner for some time this week right now, and it's 8 a.m. Why am I making it now? It's because I'm planning to be tired later. It's because I'm planning to be busy. It's because I'm planning to not feel like cooking. And so if I make something right now, then it will be in the fridge or it will be in the freezer, immediately ready for me to be failing. And that's how I'm planning. I'm planning to be failing. And what are the strategies I can put in place right now to mitigate against that risk? If you don't have those things built in, then you're going to get derailed when you have problems, and there are always going to be problems. So it's always better to think about, how could this fail? How am I going to respond to that failure? And then what things can I put in place to avoid that failure in the first place? And then it might end up like those university exams where you studied so hard and then you come out of the test and it's like, I shouldn't have studied so hard. It ended up being a really easy exam. It's like, yes, you know why that is. As always, I'm a fan of setting up your future self with as many options as possible. And ironically, it's by planning to fail that you best set yourself up for success. Thanks so much for sticking to the end. Like, comment, subscribe, and more contrarian viewpoints from my weird brain coming again soon. Take care. Bye. This is my plan for failure. Paranoia is my superpower, and it's through planning about what we'll do if this fails that we can get to our biggest successes. It's the people who think that everything is going to turn out okay, the people who fall into this secret mindset. Those are the ones who end up failing because they didn't want to plan for failure. And so when there are setbacks and they don't even know how to cope.